So those with whatever means try to obtain just the pleasures or happinesses of samsara, if that is their goal and aim, then those types of people are called people with small intelligence, who tries to actualize just the well-being or happiness in the samsara. Then there are those who, having seen the limitations and shortcomings of the samsara, aspire to achieve nirvana, liberation, a state of permanent happiness, just for themselves. These people are called people with middling intelligence, a little bit better. because they know that it is easier to say that I will work for all sentient beings, but all these sentient beings are not easy to deal with. So therefore they say, yeah, I wish I can help them, but it's too much. So rather I would get that liberation and happiness just for myself. Then there is a third group of people who say that your achieving liberation just for yourself is good, but still there is a tinge of selfishness. It's okay that you get liberated, you are completely happy, but what about the rest of the mother sentient beings? So therefore, they aspire to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So these people are called people with great intelligence. So this is to say, if you are really intelligent, then you should think more about others than just oneself. You should not just think for samsaric pleasures. Here and there you can enjoy a little bit, no problem, but that should not be your main goal. And also just liberated for oneself, not about others. So therefore, those people who strive to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings is called bodhisattvas. And the reason that these bodhisattvas aspire to become Buddha to benefit all other sentient beings is that unless you yourself is completely enlightened, you will not be able to help them in the true sense of the term. You can help a little bit, I can also help you a little bit. You can also help each other a little bit. But I have no idea what is your deep down emotion that you have brought forth in many lifetimes. I have no idea what kind of experiences you will have in the coming days and months and years. So to a completely enlightened Buddha, it is said they are able to read other people's mind. They have the best kind of clairvoyance. They have what we call as the divine eye, divine ear, all those 5 types of clairvoyances they have. So they are able to see what they need. So to take a clue from that, the more you have larger experiences of life, broader understanding of different levels of education, the more you will be in a position, even when you are not enlightened, you will be in a better position to help others. But if your own personal experience is limited, you don't have a larger perspective, it is difficult to help other people. So larger perspective means think bigger, not just bog down on small things. Understand the law of nature, the bigger picture. understand the ultimate reality, understand the importance of embracing a mind like bodhicitta, which talks about well-being of all sentient beings, not just human beings, all sentient beings. In today's world, we very much talk about globalization, supposed to be a big idea. But if you look carefully, the globalization is primarily rooted in market, in doing business, not so much focusing on helping everybody. That's why you can clearly see the rich, so-called rich, are flourishing all the time. And hardly anybody, the leaders of business, hardly anybody is taking care of uplifting the downtrodden, the poor people. Rich becoming richer and richer, poor people becoming poorer and poorer. Huge gap today. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, this is not only morally wrong, practically source of all problems. Because when these poor people have nothing to eat and nobody looking, what will they do then? They will resort to stealing, robbing, all these things happen. Right? So therefore, these Buddhist teachings are relevant in the sense, it's really telling us, not necessarily you become a Buddhist. If you want, of course. I already noticed there are one or two who want to become Buddhist. That's your personal choice. But according to Buddhism, you should not force anybody to become Buddhist. Changing religion is a very tricky issue. You just give the teaching, explain, then let people decide which one they want to go. The most important thing is not becoming a religious person. The most important thing is becoming a good person. And we see so many so-called believers of this religion, that religion, but you see some of them, the nastiest people you can see around. Because the problem is, unless you transform and train your mind, you misuse everything that is there at your disposal. You misuse politics, you misuse religion, you misuse your knowledge, you misuse your education, you misuse your economical power, whatever. Everything will be misused, as I mentioned earlier, unless we transform this brain, this intelligence. Unless we make this brain or the mind, intelligence more compassionate, more attuned towards helping others, not just human beings, but all sentient beings. If you have that, that is why the Buddha made this famous statement in his sutra, where he said, if you have one quality or one practice in the palm of your hand, then you have all the practices and all the qualities in the palm of your hand. What is that? Great compassion. He did not say emptiness. He did not say wisdom, understanding. He said great compassion. Now he said this because great compassion means a mind which is able to see sufferings of all sentient beings. A mind which aspires, which thinks, how nice if I'm able to help them get rid of all their suffering. If you have this one thing, I'm talking about genuine compassion. If you have this one genuine compassion, how can you exploit others? How can you cheat others? How can you bully others? How can you create more suffering? This is really the main thing that is missing into this world. Main thing, as the other day I mentioned about this compassion fatigue. In the hospitals, wherever you may be highly professionally trained, but when this quality is missing, you suffer from work fatigue, job fatigue, compassion fatigue, whatever, all kind of fatigue. Right? Look at the differences, the two things you should see. The nurses or doctors who suffer from, compassion fatigue or job fatigue. Compare that with the mothers who look after their children, in many cases very, very naughty children. Maybe some others may be suffering from a little bit from compassion fatigue, but mostly not, at least according to my observation. Why? Because there is great presence of love, great presence of compassion. On the other hand, you have professional training, but not concern, not sense of responsibility. That's why these qualities like love and compassion are so important. When you have this love, then even if you are to, for example, if your very beloved brother gets very sick, not only physically sick, mentally also a little bit troubled and very difficult to deal with, even in that case, the sister or mother or father or brother, whoever goes to attend that sick young man, brother, it's not easy, but still they will find it relatively easy. They will enjoy it a little bit, thinking that I'm able to serve my brother, my beloved brother. Such a privilege that I'm able to. So that very thinking, that very love makes your work easy. And in many of our, dealings with other people, other human beings, it's always difficult, because you don't love them. You don't have much concern about their well-being. Right? So it's important for you to see whenever you go around, see people moving in the market, going up, going down. Something like that comes in my mind all the time. Okay, he's searching peace. Okay, she is searching peace. Whatever it is. Or maybe searching small pleasures. Okay, she should get it, he should get it. You see? Then you expect that everybody have this happiness. They find what they are looking for. You will not develop unnecessarily, jealousy, negative competition, all these things. Right? The reason is because these people are here on this earth for a short time. And I wish during this short time they live happily, peacefully, harmoniously. Right? But because of the overwhelming presence of negative emotions, we become insane, mad. Then use this insanity to divide people in the name of religion, in the name of country, in the name of nationalism, stupid nationalism. White, black, men, women, Actually, these differences are, as I explained the other day, like in a garden, if there are many flowers with many different colors, it's beautiful. So you have a white person, wonderful, black person, wonderful, like beautiful garden, you see. So these differences should be seen as, qualities that must be appreciated, rather than, using them as a means to divide. If you think about yourself, in your own individual case also, so many conflicting thoughts come in one day. Morning you may be thinking something else. Evening you may be thinking something else. 1 hour before you may be thinking something else. Then after 1 hour you think something else. It's because of this conflict thinking you are able to improve. They help each other to grow. If you have just one thinking, you can't make any progress. So these conflicting things that you see should not be seen as factors for dividing or segregation. Right? Appreciate that and learn from that. Therefore, in the Buddhist teaching, even suffering, although we say suffering is something that we don't want, therefore we already read, how many different types of suffering, how should we get it? But then people who really have a good understanding, then they say suffering, okay. Some people they say, what suffering? There's nothing called suffering. It's your perspective. Then there are others who say, suffering, if there's a suffering, very good. Suffering is introduction to happiness. Suffering is introduction. This is so amazing. Because people suffering, sometimes I use the word challenges than suffering. If you never face challenges in your life, you will never learn anything new. There's no room for bravery. There is no room for using your intelligence. You lead a lukewarm life, neither hot nor cold. He goes like that. And then on a day when you counter a big difficult problem, you really have no idea to solve it because you never dare to face any problem. You always run away from challenges. And many of these sufferings and so-called suffering, so-called challenges, if you look, at them closely, at close range, then you will find, I thought this is something that I can't do, but it's easy. It's easy. Because you think this is a problem, this is a challenge. Because number one, you don't even, pay attention properly. Right from the beginning, you think this is problem, this is difficult, this is my enemy, I should run away, things like that. It's mostly not only the external thing, but it's your mind made up. Your mind made up. There is one Buddhist school, Chittamatra. It's mind-only school. They call it mind-only school because what you see is basically dependent upon the mind and the activation of the imprints that is there on the mind. Your mind is source of magic, mystery, suffering, problem, happiness, everything. I remembered one of my teachers. When he was undertaking his teacher training, then on the day of examination, he told me that he was so nervous when the questions were distributed. He could not see the lines even, forget about the words. He thought just a paper, Then he consoled himself by saying, this examination is not going to kill me. Why am I so scared? So he pulled some courage and looked. Then he saw at least some lines of writing, but still could not read. Then gradually when he calmed down, then he was able to read a little bit. And then on further reflection, he said, oh, this I can answer. Like that, you see. So without, disturbing your mind, if you go more into the actual capacity of the mind and look things carefully, you will find things are not difficult. So that kind of attitude is very important in dealing with difficult issues in life and also in your study. The reason we don't make much progress or don't develop much expertise in any field of education, I find most of us are like jack of all, master of none. We know a little bit. No expertise in anything. This is because we don't spend time to penetrate, understand the subject properly. So if you do that, you will excel in that field. And when you become an expert in that, naturally you will get so much employment. Everybody say, come here, come here. She is such a good software engineer. She is such a good hardware engineer. People, you don't have to look for a job. They will invite you. The problem that you are looking for a job not getting is not just there are many applicants, but from your side also you don't have the needed training, needed practice. Right? Like for example, take the Buddha. He never sought for employment or job. He spent all his time refining himself, living alone. In fact, at the time of the Buddha, many Indian sadhus or seers, they all ran away into the mountain, in the forest. The reason was India was at that time divided into many small, what you call as principalities or what? Princely states. And then gradually the ruler of one princely state becomes bigger. He used to capture another smaller one. It becomes a little bit bigger and becomes almost like a town. When it becomes bigger and when there is more population, then all bad things also happen. Crime, stealing, robbing, raping, everything happens. So Buddha and many of these teachers at that time, according to one story, they said they saw this. And they said, what's happening now? We should really find a solution for this. So they go into a place of isolation and start thinking about it. And Buddha's teaching is response to all this. Otherwise, why should he go into the mountain? He's a prince, and he has all the riches at his display. All the beautiful women are surrounding him. All the good foods, clothes. There's a summer palace, a winter palace. All those things were there even at that time. But then on contemplation, he said, okay, in this particular palace, with the fences around, everything looks good. Everything looks good. But I wonder what is there beyond this gate, beyond this surrounding. So if you follow the Buddha's life history, you should also think like that. Okay, here it looks good, but what is the situation on a bigger scale? How many people are suffering? What is happening? So then he requested his father to let him go outside. He was refused few times because there was already this prophecy that if you give him, in the kingdom, he will become a universal monarch. But if you let him go, he will become a Buddha, enlightened being. So the father was interested in him to become his successor. He was not interested in making him a Buddha, like any of us. You want your son and daughter to do the business that you have been doing. The father is a carpenter, the son becomes carpenter. That used to be the trend in ancient times. Now things have changed, but still more or less we follow that kind of line. We are not able to think, out of the box, think bigger, right? So then finally, when he was able to go outside, then he saw all the ugly sights. Ugly sights means the problems. He saw aging old men. He asked, what is this? Then he even did not know what is this. He said, what is this? And then the charioteer who was taking him around, he said, this is called aging. And then he said, will I also age? He said, yes, you are also a human being, you will also age. Then sick person, same question. Then dead person, same question. Then finally he saw a monk who looked very peaceful. And then he decided to follow that line of peaceful thinking to get rid of this aging, sickness, death, and so forth. Now the question is, can we really do away with aging, sickness, and death? According to Buddhism, yes. Sickness, for example. Much of the sickness that we are experiencing today is because of our own what? Our own what? Our ignorance, karma, our own way of life, thinking, whatever, Because we keep on chasing the objects or people that give us temporary pleasure, temporary happiness. We are not able to go beyond that. That's the problem, right? So therefore, so the point that I was making was, now I was talking about sickness. How much healthy you are, how frequently, you get sick. Maybe to some extent dependent on the gene that you inherited. There are some, proofs with that also. In some cases, there's such a striking resemblance between the genes of the father and the children that if the father dies at 78, the children also will die at 78. But there are some findings like that, but that is not definite. Genes can be manipulated. The good news is genes can be manipulated because of your way of thinking, your way of lifestyle. You can change it, right? You can change your mind, your thinking also. This is not just Buddhist saying. There was a time when there was a time, it means, in accordance with the classical physics, classical science of physics, they say when you grow older, you will suffer from dementia, right? Your nerves and other things will get hardened, and then you will get what we call is the disease of the old people. Nothing you can do. Now today, the modern science, it is saying neuroplasticity. That means if you keep on training your mind, your body may become a little bit, old, but your mind will remain fresh. And I myself seen few very senior, like the senior teacher of His Holiness Dalai Lama, then His Holiness himself. Many of them, mentally they are very sharp, very clever, even when they are physically quite old. Neuroplasticity. So in order to maintain that neuroplasticity, you need to train the mind. Train the mind also means training the brain. For example, right after birth, the child is not able to speak, right? It can only cry, right? The child is not able to speak. How does the child manages to speak?
It's immersed in speech, and it just picks it up. Its brain starts to...
So the first thing, before I forget, the first thing that I want to tell you is, the first thing the child does after the birth is crying, right? That's the only language. And by crying, the child is not asking for a lengthy discourse on Buddhism, right? Or any religion. 100%. This is a very important point. That cry is the only language the child has. So with that language, the child is asking for something, but the child is really not asking for a lengthy discourse on any religion. The child is simply asking for somebody's love, somebody's care. We need to remember this. This is how we were born. This is important to be remembered, because as we grow older, then we don't think about this basic reality. We think about the less important dividing factors. Which country you belong to, you're the man or women, white or... we emphasize more on the dividing factors than on the uniting factors. The uniting factor is the one that we had when we were born. We all do the same thing. American child, Tibetan child, Chinese child, same. The first thing that the child does is crying. Right? Right? Then my main point is, how does the child able to gradually pick up or able to speak? In order to able to speak, he has to hear their parents or relatives around saying things. Then he has to make the brain connection. The brain, different parts of the brains need to talk to each other, send the signals. This for me, when I read this topic in a book on brain, I was actually dumbfounded. So much similar with the Tibetan or the Buddhist teaching of meditation. Meditation means also you do this again and again, then you will become expert in it. So the brain is also saying, you hear and then communicate again and again, then you are able to speak. Now, the important thing is, what are you going to speak? Which language you are going to use? Foul language or a pleasant language? Depends upon what kind of training you get, what part of brain you start talking to. So they're also like meditation. If you make the child or even the grown-up people, if you continue to do the good thing, the brain will also do that, get habituated with the good thing. And then if you want to call it mind, yes, the mind will pick up that habit also. So similar, both from the scientific explanation and the Buddhist explanation. This is exactly similar. Right? So therefore, the point that I'm making is, we need to develop a larger perspective. See the reality from a bigger picture. Bigger picture. In your life also, your life will be much, much happier if you develop bigger picture. For example, if you encounter a problem, normally the problem is when I get a personal problem, I just completely get bogged down with that problem, because I'm able to think only of my problem. Then you start thinking, of all this over 8 billion human population, I am the most miserable fellow. Look, I'm suffering from this, suffering from that. And you develop this very narrow focus. Within this narrow focus, even if there's a small problem, you tend to see it as if it is unsurmountable. Yes, it is right. You have this problem. I'm not saying you don't have this problem. You have this problem. But just don't think about this alone. Also think about others. You may be having this problem in Dharamsala, but Dharamsala, relatively good place. There are Tibetan hospitals. There are Western hospitals. And there are people who will help you. Think about those people who are having similar problem and who are, caught between crossfiring in a war zone country. I visited these border areas, both North and South Korea, and also border areas between the Israelis and Palestinians. I visited all those places, so I have some idea, what happens when people are caught in a war zone. So then this kind of thinking will, help you. Yes, I'm having this problem. But much fortunate. That gives you, the ability to quickly recover from your illness and sickness. I'm not just saying this. This is now scientifically proved. So your perspective makes a huge difference. And then number one, you accept the reality. As I mentioned earlier, this body is not made of diamond or stone. It's made of flesh and bone. Then my own, what I eat, what I do, also has a, cost to all these things. So you need to accept, okay, now I'm sick because I ate the rotten apple yesterday. So from there you learn, okay, I will not eat a rotten apple from tomorrow onwards. Things that suffering is introduction to happiness. That is the point that I'm making. So this kind of Buddhist teaching, Dharma teaching, should not be, categorized as another practice of religion where you need to confine yourself into that, and judge everybody whether they are in this category, not this category. That is not your job. Because if you look at the Buddha's teaching, the foundation of the Buddha's teaching is law of nature. The statement that is normally found in the Buddhist text is the foundation, true truth, the path, method, and wisdom, the fruit, the state of the Buddhahood. So this is very comforting. The foundation is law of nature. True truth means law of nature. True truth is not made by Buddha. It was there a long time before. Buddha taught about impermanence. Buddha taught about suffering. Buddha taught of interdependent origination. Buddha taught about shunyata or emptiness. He did not discover them. Not discover, sorry, he did not invent them. Probably he discovered in the sense that they were there, but he was able to clearly see it. And most of us are not able to see it. Why? Most of us are not able to see it. Why? Because the problem with us is we keep on seeing what we want to see, not what we should be seeing. We keep on seeing what we want to see, not what we should be seeing. We keep on listening what we want to listen, not what we should be listening. We are very comfortable with our cozy room. We don't dare to venture outside. That's the problem. So Buddha ventured out. He was very observant. He was able to see clearly, oh, there is summer. Oh, there is winter. And what people are doing in the summer, what people are doing in the winter. What is the situation of the farming? So every year he was seeing that farmers are really working very hard in the field, in heat, in sun, in rain. They are working very hard. So sometimes they are very successful. They get good crop. Next year, not necessarily they get successful. They get problem. The crops are not very good, but still they do the same thing year after year. And then he thought, oh, this is a cycle of existence. On a very gross level, this is the cycle of existence. Then gradually when you explain it in a deeper level, then this external cycle of existence is very much related to the inner cycle of existence, the way your mind functions. You get angry, you fight with somebody, you produce children, and you do the same thing again and again. This is called cycle of existence. So now the question is whether you can really come out of this cycle of existence or not, right? That is the question. Or whether you should continue to be happy with these fleeting pleasures, just be there, because this is an important question. Because many of us, when we say things like, many of us might think, okay, this is just nonsense. I'm relatively happy with what I'm doing, so I'll continue to do that. People might think like that. It's up to you, of course. Right? So let me read a little bit. I drafted this morning regarding to whether you should continue to stick to the simple pleasures or try to get more long-lasting happiness. Which one would you prefer? Are you sure? You're a bunch of greedy people like me, huh? No, actually, this morning I was really thinking. I'm not praising you anymore. I was thinking. Not only this morning. I always feel like that when I speak to people like you. It's really like preaching the converts. You are all good people, so I respect you. The very reason that you are here means you are good people. You need to understand that. You need to recognize that. Sometimes, you don't recognize your own good things. You should compare it. Be happy and then carry on. Make it stronger. You already have the seed. And some of you may not only the seed, may have the flower. So let others see that flower. It's really important, very, very important. Right? Otherwise, majority of the people are just happy or not happy, I don't know, but they're just completely carried away by these fleeting sensual pleasures. So I want to read this one. We are product of natural selection, according to Darwin's law of evolution. Natural selection cares about one thing: getting gene into the next generation. What kinds of perceptions and thoughts and feelings guide us through life each day? If you ask this question, it is not the kinds of thoughts and feelings and perceptions that give us an accurate picture of reality. The thoughts and feelings and perceptions that we normally develop according to the law of evolution does not give us an accurate picture of reality. Don't worry, because according to the natural selection, law of evolution, it is the kinds of thoughts and feelings and perceptions that helped our ancestors get gene into the next generation. So we are running around just primarily for that. Our brains are designed to, among other things, delude us. But the writer says, there's no denying the fact that some of my happiest moments have come from delusions, like tasting a chocolate or whatever, right? But delusions can also produce bad moments, many bad things. For example, not just the side effect that you have by taking the sugary donut or things like that, but feelings, anxiety, despair, hatred are not delusional the way a nightmare is. It's much, much, much deeper. If you examine them closely, they have elements of delusions you would better off without. There are kind of delusions, it's better that you are without these delusions. If these basic sources of human suffering and human cruelty are indeed in large part the product of delusion, there is value in exploring exposing these delusions to the light. So here we are talking about exposing these destructive negative emotions in the light. What kind of light? In the light of wisdom and so forth. It's important. Now the problem with us is, he speaks about everyday delusion. He gives a very good example of eating junk food. When you eat junk food, you feel briefly satisfied, then only minutes later, feeling a kind of crash and maybe a hunger for more junk food. This is a good example for two reasons. First, how subtle our delusions can be. We have no idea we are under delusion, we just keep on doing the same thing, it's very subtle. But the source of delusion is illusion about things not being quite what they seem. This is the thing. You get these delusions because you are not able to see the reality. You are under illusion. Illusion means you are not able to see, the reality. Things are not actually as they appear, as they seem. So one of the very important teaching in Buddhism is the gap between appearance and reality. Gap between appearance and reality. You go for shopping. Okay, in the big mall, there's many things are on display, and they all appear nice, right? The clothes, the fruit juices, whatever, they're displayed nicely. Because if they're not displayed nicely, no one will buy. The first way to make people buy is people normally go after appearance. So in the case of a fruit juice, it is packed nicely. The package has some flowers, some colors, right? But the real fruit juice inside, God knows. When it was produced and how long it has been lying in that shop on the shelf, it will not smell because chemicals are added, preservatives are added. Very dangerous. But we just go after the appearance and then buy it. The other day I mentioned shopping coma, right? Right? So, things not being quite what they seem. Then about delusion in the more dramatic sense of the word. So here he is saying, I'm not just talking about the delusion in the more dramatic sense of the word, but things not being as they appear. All of these illusions do add up to a very large scale warping of reality, a disorientation that is as significant and consequential as out and out delusion. The second point related to this is very much related to the fundamental. This is fundamental to the Buddhist teaching. The general dynamic of being powerfully drawn to sensory pleasures. Buddha has warned us several times that we are all very powerfully drawn to sensory pleasures. That winds up being fleeting at best. Sensual pleasure, we are powerfully drawn to sensual pleasure, but that sensual pleasure itself is a fleeting pleasure at best. One of the Buddha's main message was that the pleasures we seek evaporate quickly and leave us thirsting for more. That's what Buddha said. And that is what Darwin is also saying. Modern science is also saying. We spend our time looking for the next gratifying thing. But the thrill always fades, and it always leaves us wanting more. Why? Why wanting more? Because according to the law of selection, law of natural evolution, the purpose of natural selection or evolution is to give the next generation, to produce next generation. It's not about happiness. It's not about happiness. Now, in order to the pleasure fade. Why pleasure fade now? According to the evolutionary system. The pleasures that you enjoy fade to make them effective gene propagators. to make you effective gene propagators, the pleasures that you enjoy should fade, because then you will crave more. To make this point more clearly, for example, in the case of producing children, if you have one meeting, men and women meeting, and then it's everlasting happiness, then why should you join again and again, So it fades. Then you have to again come together. It fades, come together. So with this repeated thing, produce children. The pleasure should not last forever. If it did not subside, we would never seek it again. Our first meal would be our last meal. Something like that. So this gives us a plausible explanation of human predicament as diagnosed by the Buddha. He said pleasure is fleeting. You could feel ambivalent when you hear things like that. What the point is of fiercely pursuing pleasure if the pleasure will wear off shortly after you get it and leave you hungering for more? This kind of thinking comes when you really sit down and think. Then you are able to see, yes, I need not just pleasure, but I need more longer happiness. Natural selection does not want us to be happy. It just wants us to just want us to be productive in a narrow sense. Scientists can watch this logic play out at the biochemical level by observing dopamine, a neurotransmitter that is correlated with pleasure and the anticipation of pleasure, which we discussed a little bit yesterday also. So now you can see how things work. So now here the good news is, although this attraction to sensual pleasure is very powerful, but this does not mean that you are, forever helplessly caught into it. If you make some effort, you can come out, get a bigger picture, and then find a way for long-lasting peace and happiness, as the Buddha did, and many great beings are doing. Right? And then when we talk about long-lasting happiness, it's of course the mental state. So that also says if you are mentally more or less satisfied, contented, there's no reason that you run around and destroy the nature, everything, without contentment, without satisfaction. Then we don't have to suffer these consequences of polluted air, polluted water, people fighting and killing each other. Hopefully we can, if not able to stop quickly, but we'll be able to reduce that. So this is a big picture, big plan. I'm just hinting. You need to study, reflect more about these things. Right? Does it make sense? Any questions? Yeah. Yeah.
What does the Tibetan tradition make of satori, the brief moments of cessation? Does it make that equivalent to simply just another form of pleasure, or does it recognize that there is something about it which is intrinsically a taste of nirvana, albeit a taste?
Intrinsically it is, I don't know, but you see, there is a practice in Dzogchen. This is a good question, because in the practice of Dzogchen, they say the problem arises because your mind is chasing the object. The object means not just one object, all the sensual objects that surrounds us. So therefore, when you do this, Dzogchen practice, you make an effort not to let your mind chase the object, be it of the past, be it of the future, and just try to stay on the very nature of the mind. Through doing that, there is a possibility between this gap. Normally, a mind without having a content is almost impossible. When we talk about developing a mind which does not go after the past, go after the future, it's almost impossible thing that we are talking about. But through repeated practice, it is said that it's possible that you don't let your mind chase the past or the future, and just be cognizant of the mind itself, which is cognitive, luminous. So that is something like, almost like getting a glimpse of nirvana. It's not nirvana, but getting almost like a glimpse of nirvana. And that's a like big practice. But even if you're not able to do that, but at least if you do less running, if you make your mind less running after what has happened in the past, what will happen in the future, things like that, and then just focus on the things that you should be doing, that will also give you a lot of, stability, peace and happiness. And then this question whether the mind can really concentrate on any object or not, it's an interesting question. But normally, people have asked me this question, Geshe, I wanted to concentrate, but I'm not able to concentrate. Why? Then I tell them, because you don't like the object. You don't like what you are practicing. If you like it, you will be there. So now let us, for the time being, forget about doing any spiritual related meditation. Just your job. In your job you are interested in something, mechanics or whatever. When you are interested, your mind goes there. If you're interested in singing, you're fully into singing. When you're fully into singing, you're oblivious of what is happening there, up, down, you're just singing. Like that. So it is possible. Now problem arises because the focus, when you shift the focus on the internal mental states, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. But difficult doesn't mean you can't do it. Okay?
Can I experience the ultimate happiness, but being like a normal person in the world? Like I still want to have love and relationships in my life. So I still want to suffer in a way, because it's the same thing to love and then you also suffer.
Yeah. If you are really, really in the ultimate happiness, then you don't need external agents and factors and people to love you. You are complete, you are full. Why you expect anything coming from outside? You love them, but unconditional love. There's the difference. It doesn't mean Buddha doesn't love anybody. Buddha loves everybody as his own child. The difference between Buddha's love and our love is, as I mentioned earlier, our love is business love. You love somebody because that person is loving you. Or because I love this person, because I like this person. I is the center. I is the deciding factor. As and when that person changes his way of thinking, reaction, you also change. So much so that gradually you say, okay, divorce. This is not the case with the Buddha. The Buddha says, whether you love me or not, I don't care, but I love you. You are my child. I know you want happiness, you don't want suffering, therefore I love you, I'll help you. And the reason is because, why do you love yourself, for example? We all love ourselves, right? Why do you love yourself? Not because you are a professor, not because you are a geshe, not because you are handsome or beautiful. You love yourself because because you want happiness, do not want suffering. You want love, you want happiness. This is the way it is. This is inborn kind of instinct, right? Not because you are special, you are a good singer or good dancer, not like that, right? Main reason is you want happiness, do not want suffering, therefore you take care of yourself, you love yourself, you cook for yourself, you wash your body so many times, right? So similarly, you should love also others because they are also like you, wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. That's the reason. Then of course you will say, yeah, that is true, but who am I to look after everybody, They should love themselves, I take care of myself, they take care of themselves, that is enough. When you think like this, then you are thinking as if they are not related to you. This is like saying that, if my leg hurts, my hand should not go down, because leg is a leg, hand is hand. But then at the end of the day, we say, yes, the hand must go down to the leg, that is heart, because leg is leg, hand is hand, but they are related. It is the leg that carries you. So similarly with other sentient beings also, especially in today's world, whether you know them or not, we are very closely related to each other. We are hurled into the face of each other through the speed of science and technology. And in democracy also we say what touches all must be affected by all. So it is because of this connection and relation we should care about others also. Yes, in the beginning it is very difficult to love others as you love yourself, but difficult doesn't mean that you can't make progress. Yeah?
Krishnaji, ego is very well described in so many traditions.
Yes.
And could you be kind enough to tell us about the ego in Buddhist framework of understanding?
Now the problem lies with this English word ego. Because as far as my understanding is concerned, ego not necessarily bad. There can be positive ego, negative ego, hopefully. Okay? Then what is discouraged in Buddhism, whether you call it ego or not, what is discouraged in Buddhism is thinking just about oneself alone, completely forgetting the needs of others. That is bad ego. We call it self-grasping, self-cherishing attitude. So self-cherishing attitude also may have two, good self-cherishing attitude, bad self-cherishing attitude. So good self-cherishing attitude probably may be taking good care of yourself, taking good food, developing positive mental qualities. This is good. But as I said, thinking just about yourself alone and completely forgetting others. This is unfortunately happening in today's world. So long as you get the benefit, you never hesitate in, cheating others, deceiving others, That's the problem in the society. So that kind of self-cherishing attitude or ego must be shunned. The other day I briefly mentioned, about this dethroning the negative emotions, enthroning the positive emotions. You remember? Right? Right? There's an election going on of the positive emotions and negative emotions. So in the class of negative emotions, the two main leaders of the class of negative emotions is self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping. They are president and prime minister. So self-cherishing attitude means it's opposite to bodhicitta. The bodhicitta thinks, how nice if I'm able to help others, everybody. Self-cherishing attitude thinks, I don't care about others. I just care myself. There are people who say these things. You see? Then in the end, if they really are happy with that kind of approach, good luck. But that is not the case, because you live in the society, you live with people, And then that narrow-minded self-cherishing attitude arises because of self-grasping. Now here self-grasping, this is, the word I use is self-grasping, but here the self does not refer to the person. Self here refers to independently existing phenomena. So self-grasping means developing that, grasping mind which sees things as having inherent existence, independent existence. We call it ignorance. That is the source of all the problems, of all the negative emotions. Right? So therefore, as an antidote to this, you need to appoint these two leaders, bodhicitta and wisdom, understanding emptiness. Okay? Yes?
So my question is about the nature of human emotions. So if we speak about the human evolution.
Human evolution, yeah.
So everything mostly boils down to survival.
Yeah.
Let's take an example of fear.
Yeah.
When we have this fear,
Yes.
Our senses heightens.
Yes.
It makes us alert.
Yes.
Ready to escape.
Yes,
as
yes,
soon as
yes,
we see
yes,
a predator,
yes, yes.
eventually we save ourselves.
Yes.
So if this was not
Yeah.
So my question is, we don't need to train our minds to be angry or sad or fearful or
Exactly.
but we need to train our mind to be happy.
Yes.
So do you think there is a subconscious who tries to protect us via these emotions, but we always see them in a negative light because their repercussions are suffering?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we inherited these qualities from animals. The fight and flight response inherited from animals. Now, not only, you know, the limitation of this is stored not only in Buddhism but also according to the latest scientific finding, they say that the thinking that fight and flight response is a good thing is now more and more, becoming less useful. Because instead of immediately, fighting, if you pause and think a little bit, what should be the best response, you'll get a better response than immediately reacting like animals. Right? And then also the fact that human beings have this amazing brain, it's not just for quick solution, quick reaction, but it's for thinking, to find the long-term solution, long-term, happiness. Right? Okay? Yeah.
Is compassion recognizing the self in others and others in self? And is wanting to help the world simply because you want to help your own mind, helping yourself? Like somehow I feel like the external world is a mirror of our internal mind.
True. Not in a selfish sense,
Yeah.
but by nature you want happiness.
Yeah.
And the best of happiness is be good to others.
It's always selfish, no? It's always your own mind.
Selfish, the books have been written about the so-called selfish gene. Have you read that book, Selfish Gene? And as opposed to that, somebody has written altruistic gene. So according to many, they are saying it's not that selfish. The genes or our way of life is more prone towards helping others. For example, if I smile, you feel happy. Right? So something like that, you see. So here now, the possible mistake that we might make here is you're being selfish, or you're really in need of something. So when you need something, for example, not necessarily selfishness or greed or something like that, but yes, I want happiness, I need this, not more than that. So that's fine. To get happiness, you need all this. That doesn't mean that you just get stuck there. In our ordinary case, the problem is not only you need this, but then, to get this, you do all the bad things, and then you get stuck there. There's the difference. Okay?
Geshe, when you were saying about a child being born and crying, asking for love, I thought it was a very powerful image, and another image came to me. It was the same child, or indeed even myself, dying later in the life, screaming still for love.
Yeah.
And I asked myself, how can I live so I was born screaming and crying for love,
Yeah.
and I don't die screaming and crying for love. And then you were saying about the neuropsychology, and that reminded me of that concept in psychology of attachment, right? When you have avoidant, anxious, and secure attachment styles in a nutshell. And anxious is kind of clinging, avoidant is running away, and secure is kind of facing it.
Yeah.
And I was wondering whether you can clarify for me, how can I ensure from Buddhist perspective, because I think that's my kind of personal danger, that the non-attachment and the love that we talk about is not avoidant, because I recognize how much pain there is.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
become avoidant rather than secure.
Very true. Very true. Very true. So yesterday I said, think globally, act locally. Like, think this big picture, love, compassion to everybody. Things. It doesn't mean you should not defend yourself. And in fact, if you are somebody who's committed to helping others, committed to developing love and compassion, committed to become a good, you have all the reasons to defend yourself. You are very important now. Therefore, we have security guards around His Holiness. I mean, doesn't apply to everybody, but at least we see him very important. Therefore, there are people helping him, things like that. So this is a good question. So the point is, for example, in the case of all of us, because we are comparatively, I would say, good people, all of you. I don't know individually everybody, but I do believe that you're all good people. Because of your being good, directly or indirectly, you're helping many people already. Because of your nature, because of your good behavior, because of your expression. You may or may not have the any intention to help somebody, but your nature itself, it's like sun, it's like flower. The flower doesn't have an intention to help anybody, but because it's blooming and has beautiful colors, everybody goes there and feel happy, right? So therefore, it's very important that you take care of your health. And the more I give this kind of teaching, the more I contact people, the more I realize how important is the longevity of life of good people. That's why in the case of His Holiness Dalai Lama or other teachers, in Tibetan tradition, we have this tradition of making offerings for his long life. Requesting, please live long. And then give some gifts. But the gift is not important. The important thing is when you say that we love you, please live long, His Holiness will also feel happy. When he is happy, when he sees that his life is very meaningful, that itself contributes to his longevity of life. This question was asked to me once I was visiting Switzerland and giving some talks to the Tibetans many years back. And they asked me, how does this making a request to His Holiness to live long, how does this contribute to his long life? Then I give an example, saying that, for example, this is something that I see. For example, if there is a gentleman working, say, in an office, and the young wife is in the house with the babies and doing the housework, things like that. And let us say that they are not in good terms, not very good terms, right? They are married, they have baby, but not in good terms. Then what happens? The young man, even after finishing his office at 5 p.m., he will not quickly go to the house. He will not think my beloved wife is waiting for me. My sweet child is waiting for me. Because they are in not good terms, he will just spend another hour or so up and down, drinking, thinking, fighting, whatever, in meeting other people. Then he will tell this lie after going. The wife may be waiting angry. Office finishes at 5, why you come late? Then he will tell all the lie. Yeah, I met a friend, I did this. So this kind of, lack of harmony contributes to the shortness of the life of people, you see. So you have to have this wish to live longer, and then accordingly to take care of yourself, right? So therefore, your question reminded me a very interesting saying which I read once, which says, when you came into this world, you came crying. People welcomed you by clapping their hands. Now you live your life in such a way that when you leave this world, you go smiling and people cry after you, right? So therefore, the point that the response that I'm really giving is, yes, it is very important to protect yourself. Not protecting yourself means not, with enmity, anger, jealousy. Normally the best way of protecting yourself is not the guns and things like that. There are many ways of protecting yourself. That definitely should be there. Live long. Yes.
There is a lot of emphasis about non-violence.
Yes.
And the living creatures is far beyond the human beings.
Yes.
Now, how the Buddhism would respond to the use of antibiotics
Oh.
and antifungal
Yes.
medicine
Yes.
to protect human life?
Number one, it's very difficult to make clear demarcation when a particular living being or whatever becomes a sentient being. Right? Even when you wash your hand, you may be killing so many germs. Are they sentient beings or not sentient beings? Their demarcation is also very difficult. But the Buddha is not asking you to do those things which you are unable to understand. At least those areas where you are able to clearly perceive, understand, there, start your practice of non-violence there first. So be non-violent with other human beings, other sentient beings. They are visible, they are around you. Right? So for the time being, forget about this. So sometimes, you don't do the thing that you can do, but then talk about, okay, what about this? Right? Then another thing is that your very life that you have taken on this planet is in such a form and way that somewhere you will create some problem to others. What to do? It may not be intentional. Because according to Buddhism, so long as you are in this samsara, with this body and mind, which is result of contaminated action and afflicted emotion, you will create problems to others. You are not like Buddha. If you become Buddha, then the Buddha is called meaningful to behold. Just by seeing him, people get that happiness, satisfaction. I mean, look at His Holiness Dalai Lama. Thousands, hundreds of people go there, and he's not distributing dollars. Everybody feels happy, and you see people just being near him, crying, weeping, because they know his embodiment of, ethics and morality, good things like that. So he's like a fatherly figure. Just that kind of, figure is, without having to do anything, just that kind of presence. His Holiness is sometimes called a presence, your holiness, your presence. That presence itself makes a big impact. So thereby I can say that in our case also, if we live a more compassionate, kind, peaceful life, there is every likelihood that you will be able to produce peace and happiness, a smile, in the mind and face of many people. Many people. It's important, right? Yeah.
Can you explain who is or what is Yama?
Yama, something like Lord of Death. So Lord of Death basically means, in Buddhism we talk about four evil forces. Four evil forces. The first evil force is your psychophysical aggregate itself. It's because that you have obtained such a psychophysical aggregate, you are under bondage. There's only limited thing that you can do, not much, because you are under this bondage of psychophysical existence. Then second is called the evil force of the Yama, the Lord of the Death. Now, Lord of the Death does not mean, although we draw this figure of Lord of Death with, bearing fangs, horrible facial, wrathful facial expressions. This is just a depiction. But Lord of Death, I think Lord of Death means death. Death itself, which takes away everything. And then there is also called evil force of the son of divine or something. I don't know, whatever that means. And then the worst evil force is afflictive emotion, your negative emotion. It's so important to know, because these negative emotions have been termed as the evil force. The other day I called them enemies, enemy number one. And also in a challenging note, I asked you the other day, how about your sleeping with your enemy? We can personify some of these negative emotions. If it is difficult for you to understand these negative emotions, because it's a state of mind, it's not a corporeal physical thing, we all have difficulty understanding it. So sometimes it is important to personify them. And one of the Buddhist teachers, he really personifies these negative emotions, and he says, if you are alert, I will also be alert. If you try to be clever, I will also be clever. And I will wrestle with you. Wrestle. I know you are very powerful. Your negative emotions, you are very powerful, I know. But I wrestle with you. And I'll throw you down. Or maybe you throw me down. You're so powerful. For the time being, maybe you are much more powerful than me. So you will throw me down. Okay, I'm under you. You are so heavy. There's nothing much I can do. But even if the only thing I can do is scratch, I will do that. I will never ever submit to dictates of your, evil thoughts. And then gradually through my practice, when we have the next wrestling, I'm sure I will throw you down and kill you. Yeah. Again, the non-violence should be understood in a proper context. Because in Buddhist text it clearly says, with negative emotions, you should not show any compassion. You should be violent or forceful.
And what are asuras and hungry ghosts?
They are different kind of sentient beings. Asuras are said to be, when we divide the wheel of life into 6 parts, then we have the devas and asuras. Devas, the divine beings, and the semi-divine, we call it God, the realm of God and realm of demigod. So it is said that they actually belong to the same division, gods. But this group of demigods is said to be a different kind of god who are really very bad-natured. So just like, if a human being misbehaves, then you say, you are not human being, something like that. So they call it demigod. So it said they always fight. Demigod. Then what was the hungry ghost? Hungry ghost means, again, spirits who are really always like, there are many different types of hungry ghosts. Because of their past life karma, they are always hungry. They have a very thin, slender neck and a huge stomach, and always looking after something to eat, something to drink, not finding it. Because of their karma, at a distance, when they see there is a water, like our seeing the mirage, when they see the water, they go there, they'll find that everything is dry, there's just desert, nothing else. And when they look at the moon, it'll become very hot. As soon as they see the moon, very hot. As soon as they see the sun, it becomes very cold, unbearably cold. So this is because of your negative emotion, right? And then in the cases of some hungry ghost, they labor and try to get something to eat, and then when they get something to eat, as soon as it put in your mouth, it becomes a ball of fire. You won't believe these things. Right now you won't believe it, but it is actually happening in our human world also. In many cases. For example, I've seen people who are suffering from cancer. If you eat something, then the pain they get is intolerable. Many examples, things like that. It's all possible. Yeah.
When negative emotions overwhelm us,
Yeah.
how can we find the goodness or connect with the goodness within us?
Yeah. This is a good question, but negative emotions are powerful, but they will not overwhelm you all the time. For example, say you are a very hot-tempered person, very angry person. but you will not remain angry for 24 hours. Right? So there are situations, times and moments when you are not angry, when you are not so overwhelmed by negative emotions. Then you see this moment to look at the, the characteristics of these negative emotions, how destructive, how negative they are, and then make the needed preparations. It's really like fighting an enemy. The more you are able to understand the enemy, what kind of arms they have, when are they coming. So accordingly, if you plan, then as and when the enemy comes, you are able to challenge, you are able to fight back. So similarly, if you have that mental preparation and understanding right in the beginning, then when anger is about to come, you will notice that, okay, now I'm about to get angry, I must be careful, I must watch my mouth. You'll be able to do that. It's possible, yes. Everything is possible. The word impossible is found in the dictionary of fools. Yeah. Okay, then. Yes?
I wanted to come back to the question of attachment that somebody else asked on that side. When I think about working on my attachment issues, the most obvious thing that comes to me is to separate myself from the source of attachment. Right? If I'm attached to a person, I distance myself from them, avoid spending time with them so I can work on that unhealthy attachment that I have. But somehow that doesn't sit right with me. So my question is, what is the antidote to attachment and how can we work on that?
You cannot reduce your attachment by just throwing away the objects. Attachment is a state of mind. The mind has to develop this understanding that there is no point developing attachment to it. For example, there are many beautiful teachings in Buddhism. For example, if you say attached to a, I hope this will not disturb you. For example, if you are attached to your own body or somebody's body, okay? Now the way to reduce that attachment is not to say my body is useless or his body is useless, not like that. The body properly used has many benefits, many uses, and that's why we call this human life precious human life. But having said that, if you just look at the nature of body itself without using it properly, there's nothing there in the body. As we say, beauty is skin deep. You know that expression? Beauty is skin deep. Ugly goes all the way down. Luckily, I was able to get this second sentence. I knew this first line long before. Then recently I have a book where it says, ugly goes all the way down. So meaning that the reason that you develop attachment is the outside appearance normally. So without being bogged down by this outside, appearance, if you really go down, so that's why in the Buddhist texts like the Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, it says, okay, let us peel the body. Let us try to see everything right from the top of the head to the sole of the feet. Let us try to see everything in detail. What is there under the skin? If you open each of these, layers of skin, dermis, epidermis, they say 7 layers of skin, peel all of them. What is there? Flesh, blood, then go down, bones, within the bones what? Marrows, then inside what? Lungs, livers. And then what comes from your mouth? What comes from your eye? What comes from nose? We need to clean this up all the time, right? So that means there's really nothing much to develop so much obsession and attachment. Seen in that way. Now here the distinction that you need to make, this is very, very important, is that when you see the reality, then instead of developing attachment, you may be able to develop more unconditional love. That is the good thing with this knowledge, this understanding. When you don't know the reality, just look at the appearance, as I mentioned already. There's a gap between appearance and reality. When you look just at the appearance, then you get drawn to it. Oh, she's so beautiful. Oh, he's so handsome. Not knowing that beauty is skin deep. You have no time to think like that. Okay, so beautiful, I must go there. Right? Then you get into problem. Because there's no genuine love. You're only attracted to the external appearance, and you want to enjoy that external appearance, be it the Mercedes car, whatever. Right? And the problem of developing such attachment is, I'll tell you a story. There was a gentleman, young man, who bought maybe Mercedes or whatever, brand new car. And he was, the attachment, how does attachment develop? For example, if you want something, go to the market, you see something really nice, and you want to own it, but you don't have enough money. So for many days, in some cases many months, you just go do the window shopping. You don't have the money. Then you think, I must buy it. Then you work like a donkey, collect money. Then you have not bought it. You do not own it, but still you have this attachment to this thing. Then finally you made enough money and have bought it. Then this is mine. This is my car. You see? Now you have so much attachment. Now that attachment also, especially in the beginning, during the honeymoon period. Why am I using the word honeymoon period? You know this very well, honeymoon period, right? So during this honeymoon period, you have the car. Okay, now because you have so much attachment, you make sure that the car is covered, right, with cloth, and make sure it doesn't collect dust. I've seen this myself, at least for the first few days or first few months. Then gradually nobody taking care. So this gentleman had bought this car and things like that, and he had a little child, little daughter. This little daughter, because she is so innocent, she just goes there and writes something on the car. And the father gets mad, and he just pushes her, and unfortunately the child dies. This is a story, not a real story, but for teaching. Okay. So the child dies. He did not mean to kill the child. He was really now shocked. And then only thing he can do is to go back and see what the child has drawn on the car. And to his great shock and dismay, the little girl has written, "Papa, I love you." Isn't this heart-rending? That's what I'm saying. So with attachment, with these negative emotions, you can do the greatest damage to your near and dear ones. And this attachment arises because of attachment to the appearances, the look, the superficial, presentation. So instead of getting stuck there, as you already discussed, instead of getting stuck with sensual pleasures, if you go deeper, understand the reality better, then instead of attachment, unconditional love will come. For example, you are living with your family members, and if you are Buddhist who has this understanding, every day you have this understanding, oh, my dear family members, my brother, sister, we are now together, and one day they will all go. And when will they go, nobody knows. So you show more sense of responsibility, more concern. You see? For example, if you have a very nice sister, and she is leaving for America tomorrow. So today you will be very nice, right, to your sister, give her some feast, invite her for lunch, dinner, whatever. So like that, we are here on a short, when you know that this is, I think you have this realization because you have been very nice to me. Because you knew that, okay, he will be here only for 4 or 5 days. So really it works like that, when you develop this understanding, then you develop genuine love, not attachment. Okay, yeah.
You said love yourself, but is love not actually a quality? Like, can you really love someone, something?
Yeah. Love means basically how nice he or she meet with happiness. That's love. Okay, so you can develop similar thing to yourself also. And that's why I said that especially if you are really doing good things, there's every reason to take care of yourself, love yourself. I'm not talking about the narcissistic love, but the good love.
Yeah, I have a two-part question.
Yeah,
That's okay.
yeah.
First,
This is interesting. She said, I have two-part question. I'm very familiar with this. I attended many workshops. Then we tell them, okay, just one question. Only one question. Then some young boy, they go, yeah, only one question. It's a two-pronged question. One question, two-pronged.
they're related.
Yeah.
Okay, so on a personal note, over the last years, I realized that, or I've increased awareness of a lot of selfish tendencies
Yes.
and greed I have.
Yes.
And I also do have, like, I've studied a bit of Buddhism and yoga and stuff, and I understand that it comes from ignorance, as you mentioned today also, it's this self-grasping attitude.
Mm.
But I'm still unable to convert this knowledge into wisdom because I still have a lot of these greed and selfish tendencies. So is it meditation that I have to do, and is it always meditation that converts knowledge into wisdom? So that's part A. And part B is, unfortunately, I also have a lot of people around me, close relatives and friends, who are not mentally well. They're not mentally stable. And I realize it's also because they have a lot of self-grasping attitude, very heightened sense of self. And because they don't have a calm mind, they are unable to meditate. So how can I help them?
Number one, as I mentioned, the test of pudding is by testing it, not just reading about it. So similarly, it's not enough just to have some knowledge, some awareness about things. You really need to make sure that you are practicing it. Constantly check. Meditation means getting habituated with doing good things. You need to start do that again and again, repeatedly. Then it will become part of yourself. That's important. So many a times we, unfortunately, this is true with all of us. Number one, we do not pay attention to gaining proper knowledge at all. And then, for example, in the Buddhist teaching, the three processes of study: listening, contemplation, meditation. So many of us don't even listen to good things. So of course there's no way you can get any information. Some people do listen to the teaching, then say, oh, I listened to the teaching, it was so good. How was it good? You said, oh, good, nothing. It means nothing. So therefore the second thing is contemplation. You need to contemplate. Think again, whatever you've heard about it, then you need to think again and again and see whether this really makes sense, whether this really seems true or not. Contemplate again and again. Through that, not just listening to the teaching or reading the text, but through your personal contemplation, if you agree what the text says is true, what the teacher says is true, based on your personal contemplation, then you develop conviction. Yes, this is true. Now many people just give up there. I know. This is what my teacher said, this is what is in the book, this is what I thought about. It is true. But you still have not possessed it. So now you need to make that knowledge part of yourself through repeated doing. The example, for example, is, if I am thirsty, why these three are necessary? If I am thirsty and have no idea where water is available, I need to ask somebody who has the knowledge where water is available. Then this gentleman says the water is available 2 kilometers from here. That's listening, thinking, that's hearing and listening. This is good, right? At least you know where water is available. Does that alleviate your thirst? See? So this is a good start, but that's not enough. So now what you need to do? You have to walk 2 kilometers. Walk 2 kilometers, right? When you reach near the water, you are able to see, yes, here it is water. No stupid person will say, I walked 2 kilometers, I reached near the water, my thirst is gone, thank you. So you made very good progress. Now you are able to see the water. So conviction is like that. So now, instead of saying, thank you, I reached near the water, you need to use your hand or cup, whatever, drink it. only then your thirst will be elevated. So similarly, the knowledge that you have gained, make it part of your life. That means repeatedly practicing. Because right now you are strongly influenced by the surrounding, as you mentioned, and also our own negative emotions. We are heavily, strongly influenced by that. So therefore it is very difficult, despite good intentions, it's very difficult to practice it. So you need to make some effort to do it. And through this real practice of genuinely showing love, genuinely showing compassion, genuinely helping others, you may be able to help some of the family members also. Not just thinking, not just saying, oh, I studied Buddhism, I know all this. This is so bad, they're all doing this, I don't do this. That's not enough. Right? It amounts to just criticizing others, you see. Yeah, bigger ego, exactly. So therefore, I know it is not easy to help everybody, but there are people who, when you really go out and help, they change. They know that you are not just talking, you are doing. Right? So do that. Then there are others. Unfortunately, you can't do anything. Because even Buddha could not do everything. He did not remove all the sufferings at his time. Jesus did not remove all the sufferings at his time. You see? So there are things we can do, there are things we can't do. And then whenever possible, if occasionally you, just like here, today you are here, your members will be down there somewhere, right? So occasionally you go away. Sometimes familiarity breeds contempt. So sometimes it is, absence makes the heart fonder. Absence makes the hearts fonder. Not true all the time, but sometimes. Sometimes you stay a little bit away, then you long for that person. You stay too close, then of course you are imperfect, that person is imperfect, then everybody is trying to say who is right. This is the problem, this is the drama we play. Everybody thinks, I am the one who knows everything. I am the center of the universe. Whoever you are, we have that kind of thinking. So it's bound to clash, you see. So therefore you have to be quite skillful. Sometimes remaining silent is better than talking. Sometimes talking is better than remaining silent. Sometimes a little bit away is better than being with the person. So you need to judge that. Yeah? Yes?
You said many times that Buddhism is a religion, but does religion not mean like it implies like a belief system? It is not Buddhism like going for truth. And also Buddha himself, like he was not religious, right? So if Buddhism is about Buddha, like how can there be like a religion if you're going after Buddha's teaching?
Buddhism is more of a dharma than a religion. Loosely speaking, when we talk about the whole religions, we include Buddhism also. Loosely speaking. But strictly speaking, especially if you use this English word religion, as is understood in the West and other countries, then Buddhism is not religion. Because religion, when we talk about Christian religion or Jewish religion, the center issue is faith towards the God, which is not there in Buddhism. So in that sense, Buddhism is not religion. So Buddhism is dharma. It talks about the law of nature. It talks about the reality in that sense. But loosely speaking, yes, we can say there are different religions with different belief systems.
The intersection of philosophy and psychology is seeming to be very interesting, especially behavioral psychology. There's a wonderful recent book called Useful Delusions.
Huh?
Useful Delusions.
Yeah.
So they're saying that some of these delusions are actually useful for us to survive and there's goodness in some. That's why it's called useful delusions. For example, one of the things the psychology is saying is you cannot love others unless you love yourself.
Yeah.
So would you agree with that?
Very similar. Yeah, but for example, you see that when we say sometimes delusion is useful, not only delusion, even include ignorance. As we say, ignorance is bliss. For example, the cows and some other animals, they are more ignorant than us. So therefore, generally they don't disturb others. You see, they are not very sensitive. They are happy with the small thing, food, and then they lie down. And human beings, because we have this amazing intelligence, we are so sensitive. If I say something, I have to be very careful. Otherwise, he will hurt. She gets hurt. I have to be very careful because we have this very special intelligence. Animals don't have that. Therefore, for them, something like ignorance is bliss in that sense. You see. But this does not mean to say ignorance is really important. No. So delusion or ignorance temporarily will give you some kind of, uh, some kind of peace. But that's not the solution. That is the peace of ignorant people, right? Because your house is on fire. But if you're not, if you're somebody who has no idea that house is on fire, you're still there, happy and peaceful. Right? And then you will not think about, putting off the fire. So therefore, ignorance and delusion in general, of course, is not encouraged, not good. Yes.
Geshe, I've been looking at the painting behind Buddha for the past couple of days.
Yeah.
And it's very psychedelic.
Huh.
Like if you look at that, yeah, what is it really represent?
Thanks to you. Thanks to you, because the other day you used the word psychedelics. Now I know psychedelics. Yeah, anything can have that kind of, your karma, your way of seeing things. When all these things come together, there's a Tibetan saying, "Masam menjur tel and then divu kange dobar," meaning that when all the causes and conditions, factors come together, you start seeing different things. You start seeing a human head in a cloud. You start seeing angels gliding in the cloud. Your mind makes up so many things. Yeah. So by making those things up, if you're happy, good.
But the painting actually, what does it show?
What?
But the painting's actually in the clouds, though.
Yeah.
Buddha.
Yeah. They're in the cloud, yeah. I did not look back, I just mentioned cloud. Okay, any other questions? Yeah. Yes, please.
Yes, I think it might have been yesterday, but you've also alluded to this on other occasions. When we identify with certain things, be it the world, and then we retract our senses back, and then perhaps we now identify with our body, and actually you still say, and then you say, no, that's still not you, and we retract back more, and we recognize, oh, there is mind. Then you said, and then there is the I. What is the Sanskrit word for this I that you're speaking of in Buddhism?
Huh?
What is the Sanskrit word for this I that is witnessing?
Aham.
Aham.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting.
Aham.
So this is very interesting now because
Yeah.
in the Advaita Vedanta tradition,
Yeah.
there appear, on surface level, there appear to be very profound differences between Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta.
Yeah.
But if we take a look at, I don't know if you've heard of this Swamiji, Swami Sarvapriyananda.
Mm-hmm.
He goes at great lengths to try to describe that the reality that the Buddhists are talking about is the same reality that Advaita Vedanta is talking about. So even though they may well use the word Atman, he attempts to make it clear that the Atman he's talking about in Advaita Vedanta is different to the Atman that's talked about in other traditions of Vedanta. So the Atman he is talking about is empty. It's a witness consciousness, which is not a thing like other things. It's open, aware, spacious love, and is the fundamental, groundless ground of reality. And you use the word aham, and one of the key scriptures he references is, I think, is aham Brahman.
Brahman.
This is it, yes.
Yeah.
Would this be correct in saying that here Advaita Vedanta and Buddhism do intersect, or is this him?
As far as history goes, there is this history of having a big debate between the believers of Advaita and the Buddhist, masters. And there's a history. Some histories say that the Advaita concept was defeated, things like that. I don't know much in detail. And then I heard before, there are people who say this is the same version of what the Buddhists say. So it's important that you have a very clear understanding of the both that, explanations. I heard this word Advaita many times, but I don't know precisely. So I'll study. Yeah.
Yesterday you taught about karma
Yeah.
and reincarnation and rebirth,
Mm.
and I was thinking about it.
Mm.
First, I'm really glad that I was able to think about it, because normally, like in my past life, I was always just like, okay, this is witchcraft, I have to get out. So a lot of ignorance. So one thought came into my mind, and it's like, is this idea of karma and reincarnation, like for me right now it feels like it's like a motivation for the people that are, you said, not intelligent or maybe medium intelligent, because for me it feels like to be enlightened
Mm.
means that you don't need the motivation to have another life. That you do it with the knowledge that there's only this life and there's no self, like you do it selfless.
No. The process of enlightenment is, or the purpose of enlightenment is so that you are not born again and again in this cycle existence with suffering. Right? But this is not to say that you don't want to come back. In fact, the enlightened bodhisattvas, as I mentioned earlier, they want to come back again and again to help the suffering beings. So therefore they reincarnate. The ordinary way of coming back is not out of choice. It is through the force of negative emotions and contaminated actions. As we already studied, the projecting karma, the negative projecting karma throws you into this world. Right? So you get all these problems, difficulties. On the other hand, if you are an enlightened being, then you come back not through the force of afflictive emotions, but through compassion, through love. You reincarnate. So the end purpose is not to vanish somewhere, This life of life in samsara is useless, so I disappear. No, it's not like that. You come back again and again, but the way of coming back again and again is not through the negative emotion and karma, but out of one's choice.
But for me, right now, it just seems like it's still a concept made up by someone that is afraid of death, because he wants to come back. So for me, it feels like true enlightenment would be the knowledge of, I will come back, but I will still do this. I will still live a compassionate, loving life.
Yeah. Come back, live, yeah.
Without being able to come back.
Without
Being able to come back.
Without being able to come back. Why you can't come back? You don't need a visa to come back. So that's why I said you come back out of your choice. If I give you an example, for example, if I visit somebody's house, there may be two reasons that I visit. One, I want to get that money back that I hired. Another maybe not to get the money, but I want to go there and help them. So it's something like that, you see. Yeah, last question maybe. Yeah.
You mentioned that people have energy around them and a vibe around them.
Yeah.
depending on the karma they carry.
Yes.
Is it also possible for plants and objects?
Yes, yes. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Because as I said, some plants and trees are, they look like plants and trees. They may not be plant tree. They may be sentient being.
Is that a bodhisattva reincarnating?
Not necessary, not necessary, not necessary. For example, sometimes if you chop piece of rock, hard rock, no hole, no entrance, nothing, hard rock, you chop it, you find there is an insect inside. Have you seen something like that? Huh? Fossil, signs of maybe fossil, but clear indication of living beings. So according to Buddhism, it says, after you die, then you take this intermediate state, pardo. In the intermediate state, you have a very subtle body, not gross physical body. You have all the senses intact. And you can pass through the walls, stones, trees, everything you can pass without any obstruction. You are able to do this because of the force of karma. Sometimes it is said that your force of karma might end up when you reach amidst the rock. You die there. Right? Okay, one last question. Yes.
We're talking about emotions and looking at understanding your negative emotions, positive emotions. What is the role of Tantra? Like, that is again a big study in Buddhism. So, what does that do and how does it impact?
Oh, Tantra, mantra. Man means mind, Tra means protect, Tan means stream, continuity, Tra means protect. So mantra basically means protecting the mind. The method employed in mantra or tantra to protect your mind is, first of all, you try to see everything in a pure form. Don't highlight their faults, shortcomings. See everything in a pure form, nothing to complain. And when you develop such a positive, pure attitude, when you see everything pure, perfect, good, wonderful, why should you get angry? Why you should develop attachment and other negative emotions? So with this kind of practice of seeing everything in its pure form, you are able to stop arisal of many of these negative emotions. That's the process. And then another unique thing with tantric practice is then you use your physical energies, yoga, chakras, channels. Through that way, you are able to gain certain insight much quicker than the process that you do in the sutra. So those are the practices. And then visualizing yourself as a deity. For example, in the sutra, there is no process of imagining yourself as a deity, right? You just imagine Buddha up there, not imagine yourself as the Buddha. But in Tantra, there is a process of practicing yourself as that divine being. And this is done by chanting this mantra, Om Swa Bhava Shud, Sarva Dharma Swa Bhava Shud. This is Sanskrit. Om Swa Bhava Shud. Om, as I mentioned earlier when I was explaining mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, the Om symbolizes me, the I, with the body, speech and mind, the three things. Om Swa Bhava Shud. This I, Swa Bhava means by nature. By nature is pure. It doesn't have inherent existence. Om Swa Bhava Shud. Likewise, Sarva Dharma Swa Bhava Shud. The rest of all phenomena, Sarva Dharma, by nature are pure. They don't have inherent existence. Meaning, with this kind of thinking, you are saying, I don't have independence. Primarily here in this case, I don't have independent existence. With this kind of reflection, you dissolve your grasping to a concrete physical entity, things like that, and then you maintain your meditation only on that level of emptiness, which is mere absence of independent existence, mere absence. Once you reach that level, then from that level of emptiness, you imagine yourself arising into that particular deity, which is completely pure. So these are some practices that they do. Okay, thank you. So I had to go for a very important mission after lunch. So there is no class after lunch.